Hello and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. And welcome to the first ever episode of Movie Central, Editorials. Hold on a second, this isn't the exact format of the geek room I need for this editorial. Let me do a little trick I earned from my pal Thanos over at Marvel Studios. That seems right. Yeah, you read the title. We're going to talk about the sudden disappearance of movie video games. Currently, the biggest movie video game is Jumanji the video game, based upon two Jumanji sequels from 2017 and 2019. We also have a Star Wars canon game that's known as Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and we have Marvel's Avengers. Okay, to be real, that last one isn't really a tie-in for movies, but I'll get there soon. But keep in mind that every big blockbuster movie we got back in the early days had a tie-in game to go along with it. But now we don't get that much. Come on, guys, where's my Avengers Endgame video game? That would be fantastic. But we didn't get that. But why? Why did we not get any other video game movie adaptations? Well, that exist other than a few. Well, in order to answer that question, we need to go all the way back to the 1980s. The 1980s and 90s had a huge amount of games. We got Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Centipede, Duck Hunt, and the best game of the 1980s, Super Mario Bros. However, we did get movie games based on huge blockbusters back then. We got such games like Indiana Jones games, a Batman 1989 game, Back to the Future games, Jurassic Park games, Toy Story games, and the biggest one of all, tons of Star Wars games. We also had GoldenEye the video game on the N64, even though it was made to tie in to Tomorrow Never Dies, and the worst video game of all time, E.T., the Extraterrestrial, the video game on the Atari 2600. Why is it the worst video game of all time? It's still gameplay and crappy graphics really bring it down. Hell, it was so bad that most of the cartridges were buried in a New Mexico construction site, only to be dug up years later because the game sucked that hard. But I'm getting off track. That's a story for another time. The point is, whatever big movie was out at the time, you could be damn well sure that it was going to get a movie game. Which leads us into the 2000s. Hell, the 2000s were no different, and we got games based on popular movies at that time. Movies like Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, and the wildly popular Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies even got their own versions of a movie adaptation game. And they're wildly popular too. And no, I'm not putting in any memes of the pizza theme or Bully Maguire because I feel like I'm too mature for that. Anyways, other than that, we got a game based upon the popular movie from 2005, Batman Begins. Despite mixed reviews, the game was enough of a success to warrant a sequel based on the upcoming 2008 superhero film The Dark Knight. So how was that game? Well, it unfortunately never released. Surprisingly, Electronic Arts, or EA, was trying to rush out the game in time for the 2008 blockbuster film that would not only gross $1 billion at the box office, but also win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Yeah, the Dark Knight game never released at that point, but that is also a good thing because we ended up getting the amazing Batman Arkham games instead, and those turned out really well. But other than DC failing to get out movie games as well as good games as a whole, Marvel was pretty lucky, as not only did we get Marvel's Ultimate Alliance and the Phase 1 MCU movie games, But they were popular, and it helped warrant enough money to make more. While they were not really well received, though, they did help satisfy the main demographic of gamers, hence why they were a success. Other than those games, we got Star Wars Battlefront and its sequel, as well as the Lego games based on Star Wars. And then the 2010s rolled around, and boy, this is where stuff starts to decline. This is when games like Toy Story 3 and Lego Harry Potter and many others came out in this decade. But also around this time, Marvel were cooking up something big. The biggest comic book movie at that time, The Avengers. So that obviously meant we were going to get a game. So how was that game? Well, just like the Dark Knight game, it was never released. This was due to the developer, THQ, running out of time. But what was the game going to be like? Well, it was going to be not based on the actual movie like the other games did, but the popular comic Secret Wars, and it would utilize the first person brawler gaming style. But sadly, we never got this game. However, we did get an Avengers game which used some of the same ideas, that being Marvel's Avengers Battle for Earth. Now, we have some questions. After 2012, we kind of lost movie tie in games. The only ones that really warmed the shelves were the Lego Lord of the Rings and the surprisingly unsuccessful and really unknown game, the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game for the 3DS. We also got another MCU game, Lego Marvel's Avengers, based not only the Avengers and its sequel, but also Captain America the Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, Captain America the First Avenger, and Thor the Dark World. But the biggest games, no doubt, based on movies nowadays, are all the Star Wars properties. The remakes of the Battlefront games, Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, as well as the Skywalker Saga and Jedi Fallen Order. But it's 2020, and I just went to Target and bought these movie games. Jumanji the video game, Jedi Fallen Order, and then this one, Marvel's Avengers, which is not based on the MCU, but why am I considering it a movie tie-in? Well, Marvel's Avengers is a fairly recent game, and the MCU Avengers movies aren't even a decade old. But every single one of them has made over $1 billion at the worldwide box office, all in the top 50 highest grossing movies of all time. The last two, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, making over $2 billion. That is why I consider this game to be a movie tie-in game. Although to be fair, it could be connected to the recent Spider-Man game on the PS4, which now gives me a chance to talk about the PS5 reboot. Good God, the graphics are improved and much better than the original. But I digress. But those three games I just mentioned are the only ones that are relevant these days. But where are the others? Well, here they are. Yeah, guys, the reason we don't get movie tie-in games so often anymore because of mobile games. We got the Iron Man 3 game, Captain America the Winter Soldier game, Toy Story Smash It, Frozen games, Inside Out games, Batman games, and of course, Star Wars and Harry Potter. Most of these games are incredibly lackluster and really cheaply made, some even getting low reviews. So, what do I have to say about all of this? Well, since most kids are addicted to cell phones, I feel like the trend of mobile games is never going to end. So my thoughts are keep the mobile trainer rolling and leave the movie studios to create really choppy games that kids can beat in about an hour, other than well thought out, strong and amazing games that have a lot of replay value. And that is probably the best for the kiddies. My God, that took me a while to make. Well, I guess that's it for this editorial. Tune in on Thursday when I take a look at Iron Man 2, the third film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And be prepared for my next editorial, which can be your suggestion. Anyways, this is Mr. CCS. You're watching Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next time. Okay, at the time I'm recording this, we lost the original villain of Star Wars on November 28th, 2020. This video is dedicated to David Prowse. Rest in peace, Dave. The Force will be with you always.